Chosen one. Listen closely. Something sacred is shifting in the unseen. The veil that has covered your true identity is being lifted. What you thought was confusion was actually protection. What you called silence was heaven's pause before revelation. You are not drifting. You are being summoned. This moment, right now, is not coincidence. It is divine alignment. All your life, you have felt different. The noise of the world never fit your spirit. You walked among the ordinary, but carried something eternal. Every season of loneliness was a classroom for your spirit. Every closed door, a lesson written in invisible ink. Heaven has been writing your story in silence. And now the ink begins to glow. There's a sound in the spirit, soft but mighty, like the crack of dawn breaking through the night. That is the sound of your awakening. You are stepping into the knowing, the awareness of who you've always been in the eyes of God. The light that once flickered inside you is about to blaze. The ancient record in the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 22, declares, he reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in darkness, and light dwells with him. That's what is happening now. God is revealing the deep and secret things about you, the why behind your pain, the purpose in your wilderness, the reason you survived what others did not. You are walking into understanding. The veil was never to hide you from God. It was to hide you from those who were never meant to recognize your value too soon. There once was a young man, quiet and often overlooked. He dreamed of impact, but carried no confidence. He didn't know that his seasons of being unseen were shaping him into a messenger. Years later, when he finally spoke, his words carried a power that silenced rooms. He had been forged in hiddenness. His story mirrors yours, prepared in secret to shine in appointed time. Think of a seed buried deep in soil. To the untrained eye, it looks dead, forgotten, unseen. But within that darkness, life stirs. Roots form. Strength builds. When the first sprout pierces the surface, the world gasps. But heaven smiles. For heaven knew what was forming underground. You have been that seed. Every unseen day was sacred preparation for this moment of unveiling. There's a reason the enemy fought you hardest in your silent seasons. He feared what would happen when you realized who you are. But now you see it. The darkness never defeated you. It developed you. The pain didn't bury you. It planted you. You are not who you were yesterday. There is light rising in you that your past cannot contain. The weight you've carried, the questions that haunted you, they were all ingredients in the making of your divine identity. Chosen one. Heaven is declaring, enough hiding. Your spirit is being called forward. The dreams you abandoned, the prayers you whispered, the faith you thought had faded, God has not forgotten any of them. They were preserved for such a time as this. The light within you is not meant to blend in, it's meant to disrupt darkness. When you walk into spaces where hopelessness lingers, your very presence is an announcement that God still moves. You carry heaven's fingerprint, and when you act, it is heaven acting through you. Right now, as you hear these words, the old shell is cracking. The false identities you wore to survive are falling away. You are no longer the version of yourself that needed to beg for belonging. You are stepping into the authority of the chosen. The veil is lifting, and with it, your memory returns. You remember what peace feels like. You remember what power feels like. You remember who walks with you, Pause for a moment. Take a breath. Feel the weight of this truth. Heaven has chosen you to awaken others. This isn't just about your survival, it's about your assignment. The same light now stirring in you will one day ignite multitudes. So, before you scroll away, respond to what your spirit feels. If this message has reached you in a divine moment, acknowledge it. Tap like. Share this word so others may awaken too. And comment 111. Not to perform, but to agree with heaven's movement over your life. The curtain is drawn back. The truth stands before you. You were never lost. You were hidden for a season, preserved for a purpose. The unveiling has begun, and heaven is watching as you rise. From the moment you took your first breath, the mark of heaven rested upon you, though no one around you could see it. The spiritual realm recognized it instantly. There has always been a difference about you, an invisible distinction that made ordinary spaces feel too small for your spirit. The mark was not something you earned, it was something placed upon you before you arrived here. Your childhood might have carried glimpses of it, those moments when you sensed things others could not explain, when you felt emotions that had no source, when you dreamed of places you'd never been. You were not imagining it. The divine signature on your life has always whispered from the edges of your awareness, reminding you that you were set apart long before the world could give you a name. Some marks are seen in scars that never healed the same way. Others are felt in the weight of empathy. You carry the way your heart breaks too easily, the way you notice pain that others ignore. That sensitivity was never a weakness. It was evidence of divine design. Heaven needed someone who could feel deeply enough to heal deeply. Someone who would not become numb in a world that glorifies indifference. It is no coincidence that you have always drawn both light and resistance. Those who carry great purpose often live with a magnetism that confuses others. People are drawn to your energy, but cannot always handle your depth. Some admire you from a distance. Others reject you without cause. Do not take it personally. The mark upon you is both a seal and a signal. It attracts what is divine and repels what is counterfeit. There was once a woman named Elise, a quiet soul, who always seemed to stand on the outside of her own life. She tried to conform, to speak softer, to blend in. But every attempt to disappear only made her presence more noticeable. When she prayed, people wept. When she entered a room, arguments ceased. She didn't understand why until one night she dreamed of a crown of light hovering above her head. When she woke, she wept not from pride, but from recognition. For the first time, she saw what heaven had always seen. Elise represents many of the chosen, those who have lived years unaware of their spiritual royalty. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 27, the spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inner depths of his heart. The mark you carry glows from within like a divine lamp. It searches through your motives, your fears, your secret hopes. Every hardship you've faced has been heaven polishing that lamp so its light could shine without distortion. Even your failures have served purpose. They have carved humility into you, creating room for wisdom to dwell. Sometimes the mark feels heavy. You watch others move freely, while you are slowed by conviction. You sense God's no, even when others hear yes. You feel restrained where others are celebrated. It can feel unfair. But understand, those marked for divine work are protected by divine boundaries. Where others can wander, you cannot. Where others can compromise, You are arrested by purpose. That restraint is mercy, not punishment. The mark has another effect. It causes your life to move in divine timing. Nothing seems to come easily. Delays multiply. Opportunities vanish just when you are ready. Yet, later, you see how every postponement was perfect. You were not being denied. You were being aligned. Heaven does not rush masterpieces. Picture an artist carving stone. Each strike of the chisel removes what doesn't belong, revealing the shape hidden within. You are that sculpture. Every disappointment has been a divine strike, removing excess, defining purpose, refining beauty. And though you might feel the pain of the process, the master sees the final form already gleaming. This is why you have always been drawn to depth, to music that aches, to words that burn, to silence that speaks. The mark on your soul tunes you to heaven's frequency. You cannot thrive in shallow waters because your roots are meant to drink from eternal springs. So, as the veil lifts and your awareness grows, you will start to see it, how your path was never random, how every detour was direction, how every wilderness was rehearsal for destiny. You will begin to look back with gratitude instead of grief. What once looked like abandonment will now appear as orchestration. You are marked from birth, chosen to be a living reminder that purpose does not begin when you understand it. It begins when God ordains it. And though the world may label you strange, distant, or intense, heaven calls you by another name, necessary. The mark remains, glowing quietly beneath the surface of your days, waiting for the moment when it will no longer be hidden. And that moment is drawing near. There is a rhythm to destiny, and for a long time, you have lived in the silence between beats. The waiting has felt endless, like standing in a hallway with every door locked, holding promises that seem to expire in your hands. But this silence was never absence. It was the sound of heaven tuning your spirit to a higher frequency. Every chosen one walks through a season of waiting. It is the divine classroom where patience becomes armor and faith becomes breath. You, too, have walked that road. The prayers that felt unanswered were not ignored. They were being timed. Heaven's answers are not always delayed. Sometimes they are protected. There was once a man named Aaron. He was told from youth that he was meant to lead. Yet every opportunity to rise crumbled beneath him. His friends prospered. His dreams stalled. One night, in quiet frustration, he cried, "Why me? God?" The reply came softly but firmly, "Because what I am building in you cannot be rushed." That night changed him. He began to treat waiting not as punishment, but as preparation. When his moment came, he recognized it instantly because the silence had trained his hearing. You are living that same transformation. The Word of God declares in the Book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 26, "It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." In that stillness, heaven writes lessons you can't learn in motion. The waiting shapes your discernment. It teaches you to recognize counterfeit doors. It matures your prayers from asking for things to asking for wisdom. Waiting is not the absence of progress. It is the creation of foundation. You may have wondered why others seem to run ahead while your path unfolds in slow motion. But notice what happens when storms come. They are swept away, while you, rooted in stillness, remain. God was never late. He was strengthening your roots. There's a beauty in delayed unveiling. A diamond must stay buried until the earth finishes its work. A tree must remain still until its trunk hardens enough to carry branches of blessing. The same is true for you. The pause you resent is the pause that will protect your destiny when the spotlight finds you. Sometimes the weight strips away illusions. You begin to see who is real, who endures, who stays when there is nothing left to gain. Waiting refines your circle. It removes noise until only truth remains. That is why God isolates his chosen. It is not rejection, it is refinement. You may remember the nights you questioned your worth, thinking you had failed. But those were sacred nights. Heaven uses silence as a scalpel, cutting away the false layers of identity until only purpose remains. Look back now, notice how every delay carried secret mercy. That job you didn't get saved you from burnout. That relationship that ended spared you from distraction. That dream deferred preserved you for the one that will last. Nothing was wasted. Heaven was editing your story with love. If you listen carefully, you'll realize the waiting has made you wise. You now move slower, but with intention. You speak less, but with weight. You no longer chase everything that glitters because your spirit recognizes gold only by fire. And soon, very soon, you will see why it took this long. When the season shifts, you will not stumble into purpose. You will walk into it prepared. The silence will make sense. The delays will feel divine. Every promise still stands. Every seed still holds life. Heaven has not forgotten you. The same God who called you to wait will call you to rise. Now, as you breathe in this truth, take a small act of agreement. Comment, "Still I wait," a declaration that you trust the process, that even in silence, you are listening. Because waiting is not weakness, it is wisdom wrapped in faith. The time in between is holy. Do not rush what heaven is still perfecting. When you write, "Still I wait," you are not confessing defeat, you are declaring trust. You are saying to heaven, even if nothing moves, I still believe. Those 3 words become a melody of surrender, one that angels recognize and echo back to the throne. Each time you type them, it's an act of defiance against fear. It's you choosing faith over frustration, silence over noise, patience over panic. It's you standing still while the storm tests your roots. And heaven sees it. The moment your words meet faith, the atmosphere shifts. "Still, I wait" is not passive, it is prophetic. It means you know that when the waiting ends, glory will follow. There are moments when the night feels endless, when your heart beats beneath a sky that refuses to brighten. Those are the hours when whispers come, when doubt speaks with familiar voices, when shadows offer false comfort. Yet even in the dark, something sacred moves. You are not being punished. You are being prepared in silence. The dark seasons were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to reveal what could survive without light. Every chosen one walks through hidden valleys where faith feels like breath held too long. You have walked there too, asking why the path grew colder, why prayers fell like stones into an unseen well. But the truth is, the dark was not empty. It was occupied by the presence of God. There was a man called Micah, not the prophet of Scripture, but one who carried the same longing. He was quiet, steady, the kind of soul who helped others find hope while secretly wrestling with despair. Years of setbacks had worn his belief thin. One night, lying awake in silence. He whispered, "If you still see me, show me light." In that instant, a memory rose in his spirit, his mother's words when he was a child. The darker the soil, the deeper the seed. He wept, not because everything changed, but because he realized nothing had been wasted. From that night, he walked differently. The shadows no longer scared him. They became proof that God was still working underground. As written in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who trust in him." No, the night tests that trust. It strips away easy belief and leaves behind something fierce faith that no longer depends on comfort. You have learned to stand in the dark and still call God good. That is the mark of the mature, the seasoned, the chosen. In the quiet hours, heaven observes what you do when no light affirms your path. The unseen becomes the measure of your strength, and though the world might see only silence, heaven sees the building of endurance. You are learning to hear with your spirit instead of your eyes. You are learning that faith doesn't demand proof, it becomes proof. Sometimes darkness comes not because of sin, but because of transition. The caterpillar must enter its own shadow to be reborn. You have entered such a cocoon before, days when vision blurred and nothing made sense. You mistook it for abandonment, but it was transformation. God was protecting your becoming from premature exposure. Even creation understands this law. Seeds are buried in darkness before they sprout. Gems are formed beneath the weight of mountains. Oil is pressed from olives only when the crushing begins. Everything sacred is refined in secret. So too, have you been refined, pressed, buried, hidden yet never forgotten. The darkness has a language of its own. It speaks of surrender, of stillness, of strength concealed beneath fragility. When you learned to stop fighting it, you discovered peace there. You found that worship whispered through tears carries more power than songs shouted from stages. Now, when others fear the night, you move through it with calm authority. You recognize it as a familiar classroom. You know that what appears empty is often occupied by angels working quietly. There will come a dawn, unmistakable, sudden, beautiful, but it will not surprise you, because those who have lived through the night understand its purpose. You will rise not as someone who escaped darkness, but as one who carries its wisdom. You've learned to see what cannot be seen, to trust without feeling, to walk without confirmation. That is what sets you apart. The darkness no longer defines you, it refines you. So when the next shadow falls across your path, you will not panic. You will remember what the night taught you, that the presence of darkness does not mean the absence of God. It often means He is closer than your senses can register. You have survived whispers meant to undo you. You have walked through silence meant to break you. Yet you remain, and remaining is victory. The night has done its work. You are stronger, wiser, and filled with quiet fire. The same darkness that once silenced you now bears witness to your light. The darkness bowed to your endurance. It could not consume what heaven sustained. You now carry night's wisdom, glowing like a lantern for those still lost. You walked through shadows and discovered light was never gone. It lived within you, waiting for silence to teach you how to see differently. There is something few ever realize: you were seen by the enemy long before you understood your own calling. That's why the opposition came so early, so violently, so unreasonably. You were targeted because darkness could sense the power of your light before you even had language for it. The attacks were not signs of weakness. They were confirmation of identity. Every chosen one faces resistance before recognition. You have lived that truth. When people misunderstood you, when opportunities slipped away, when peace seemed unreachable, it was not random. The battle was never about what you did. It was about who you are. You carry light that exposes hidden things, and darkness fears exposure. That's why your joy was fought, your faith tested, your relationships shaken. But through it all, you never lost your glow completely. Even at your lowest, something inside kept flickering, a reminder that you are chosen and guarded. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Zechariah, chapter 2, verse 8. For whoever touches you touches the apple of his eye. End of. Think about that. Every moment of opposition, heaven took personally. Every lie told about you, every betrayal, every attack, God watched and turned even those wounds into wisdom. The pain did not break you. It revealed your armor. Imagine a lighthouse standing alone on a cliff. Storms crash against it. Waves try to drown it. Winds scream to silence its flame. Yet every strike of lightning only makes the tower more visible in the dark. That's you. The light they tried to extinguish became the beacon that guides others home. And now, as this message reaches your spirit, you know something has shifted. The attacks that once made you question your worth now testify of your worth. The very things that tried to destroy you are the reason you shine with such depth. Still, this journey has not been easy. Carrying light costs something. It costs tears, strength, and sometimes solitude. But even as you carry your own battles, you've chosen to keep walking, to keep sharing, to keep believing that these messages matter. And they do. You see, what we build together here is not just content. It's a sanctuary for souls in transition. Each video, each word, each sound is like oil poured into a lamp so someone else can see through their darkness. This space has become a small flame in a very loud world, and you are part of that flame. If this light has reached you, if you've ever found comfort, clarity, or courage through these words, then consider helping keep this light burning. Not because you owe, but because you understand. Think of it as tending a sacred fire. When you like this message, you blow a gentle breath that helps the flame rise. When you share it, you scatter sparks into other hearts still waiting for warmth. When you subscribe, you're not joining a list. You're joining a circle of keepers who guard the light together. And if your heart ever feels moved to give, to support this work in any measure, do it freely. Your donation is not payment. It's a pour of oil into the lamp, ensuring its glow reaches farther across the night. Like rivers joining one current, every act of giving time, prayer, or resources feeds the same flow of light. No pressure, no demand, just invitation. Because generosity is only sacred when it's willing. There's a story of a man who listened to messages like this in his darkest season. He had lost everything: his job, his peace, his will to hope. One night, he stumbled across a video that simply said, "God has not forgotten you." He wept, and something shifted. Later, when his life turned around, he chose to give back, not out of obligation, but gratitude. He said, I wanted to help someone else feel what I felt that night. End of. That's how the light keeps moving from one heart to another. From healing to healing. From grace to grace. So, as you sit here now, hearing these words, take a breath and remember, this is not about money. This is about mission. If it's on your heart, let it flow freely. If it's not, let your presence and your prayer be your offering. Every kind of support fuels the same flame. Like this message, if it stirred your soul, share it if you know someone who needs hope. Subscribe if you want to walk further with this movement of light. And give. Only if your spirit whispers, yes, because even a drop of oil can keep the lamp burning through the longest night. You are part of something sacred. You are helping the sound of heaven reach farther than the darkness ever intended. And every act, big or small, keeps this light alive. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when heaven begins to uncover what has been hidden all along. Not new truth, but ancient remembrance. The kind of knowing that vibrates through your bones. The world has called you many names, but heaven has always whispered one word: identity. This season is not about searching for who you are. It's about remembering. The Spirit has been peeling back layers: fear, comparison, guilt, so that the original design of your soul can breathe again. You have carried gifts you did not understand, dreams that frightened you, a sense that you were built for something larger than survival. That is because your identity is not borrowed from this world. It was spoken by God before time began. We find in the writings of the Apostle Paul, in the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 11, "In him we have obtained an inheritance, being predestined according to the purpose of him who works all things after the counsel of his will." Your inheritance is not only in heaven, it breathes through your purpose on earth. Every step you've taken, even the wrong ones, has been woven into divine counsel. Nothing has been wasted. The mistakes became messages. The wounds became wells. The delays became direction. Picture yourself standing before a great mirror. But this is no ordinary reflection. It shows not the outer image, but the inner blueprint. In it, you see traces of compassion that survived cruelty, courage that refused to die, grace that kept flowing when logic said, stop. That reflection is the real you, the one heaven recognizes even when you forget. There once was a young artist named Rena. From childhood, she saw visions in color, painting what she could not describe. Teachers told her to paint something practical. Friends told her art would never pay the bills. For years she hid her brush, convinced her passion was foolish. But heaven kept pressing images into her dreams: bright cities, wings of light, rivers of glass. One morning, she woke up and simply began again. Within months, her work spread online. People said her paintings made them feel peace, even healing. She realized then her gift wasn't about fame, it was about release. Her art was prophecy in pigment. You carry something like that too. Maybe it's words, maybe compassion, maybe the ability to see what others overlook. Heaven didn't make you different to isolate you, it made you different to illuminate others. Your uniqueness is not rebellion, it's revelation. Identity, once remembered, cannot be stolen. That's why the enemy fought so hard to confuse it. If he could make you doubt your worth, he could make you bury your weapon. But you're awakening now. And as your true self rises, so does your authority. The moment you realize who you are, the atmosphere around you changes. The same voices that mocked you grow silent. The doors that resisted begin to yield. Creation itself recognizes you the way a harp string vibrates when the right note is struck. There's something sacred about recognition. Heaven doesn't crown confusion, it crowns clarity. And clarity has come. You may still walk through battles, but now you understand why. You are not fighting to prove who you are fighting from the position of who you are. You will soon see opportunities that match your design. They won't demand you shrink or perform. They'll feel like peace, not pressure. That's how you'll know they're divine. Still, before you move forward, pause for a sacred act of agreement. When heaven reveals truth, the soul must respond. Comment 888, a symbol of new beginnings and divine alignment. It's not superstition, it's declaration. Those numbers echo the rhythm of eternity, an acknowledgement that your new identity has awakened. Write it, not for visibility, but for agreement. Let it be your small shout into the unseen, I remember who I am. And when you type it, you are marking this day in heaven's record, a day when the veil of confusion fell away and purpose became clear. Identity does not arrive like thunder, it unfolds like dawn, quiet at first, then steady, then impossible to ignore. You are standing in that dawn right now. The first rays are touching your spirit, showing you what was always true. You are chosen, equipped, and unstoppable. So step forward gently but boldly. The world is waiting for the version of you that heaven has been preparing in silence. You no longer walk as one searching, you walk as one found. And as you move, everything meant for you begins to find its way home. There are seasons when the pressure becomes almost unbearable, when it feels as though the air itself is heavy, and every breath demands strength you no longer possess. That is the weight of glory. It is not punishment, nor cruelty. It is heaven pressing purpose into flesh. You have been feeling it, the inner stretching, the invisible ache, the sense that something vast is forming within you. Do not misinterpret it as failure. When God increases the assignment, He increases the weight. You are being shaped to carry more. A blacksmith cannot shape steel with gentle hands. The hammer must fall, again and again, until resistance becomes resilience. Likewise, the Spirit has been hammering courage into you through disappointments, through loss, through the breaking of what you once thought permanent. Yet every strike has meaning. Each pressure point has purpose. The Apostle wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." End quote. That is the divine paradox. What feels like crushing is actually construction. Heaven builds strength where the world sees suffering. You may think you are under attack, but in truth, you are under refinement. Imagine a potter at the wheel. The clay spins endlessly, dizzy and uncertain, pressed and reshaped by unseen hands. It has no idea what it is becoming, but the potter does. The fingers that press hardest are also the ones that shape beauty. The wheel is not a prison, it is a process. So it is with you. There was once a man named Elias who prayed for power. He wanted to be used by God to change lives. And God answered, by leading him into a year of loss. Friends drifted away. Opportunities vanished. His savings dwindled. In prayer, he cried, "You promised me power, but all I feel is pressure." A quiet voice replied, "That pressure is power in disguise." When the season finally broke, Elias realized he had been given more than he asked for: patience, discernment, humility. Power had come, not as lightning, but as depth. So too is it with you. Glory does not come through ease, it comes through endurance. You are being prepared to hold something eternal without cracking under its brilliance. Every trial adds another layer of strength unseen to human eyes. When the world looks at you, it might only see the outer surface, the exhaustion, the long nights, the unanswered questions. But heaven sees the architecture of your spirit. You are becoming cathedral-like inside, wide enough for light to echo. Do you remember those times you almost gave up? The nights when your chest ached and your prayers felt mechanical, yet somehow you stayed. That staying was sacred. It carved faith into your bones. The weight you carry is evidence of capacity. Heavy callings are not given to fragile shoulders. The reason your battles seem harder than most is because your destiny demands endurance others may never need. The oil that flows from olives only appears after crushing. The fragrance of incense only releases when burned. Even gold must melt before it shines. The glory resting on you follows the same law. It cannot dwell on the surface. It must be birthed through breaking. Sometimes the weight isolates you. People may not understand what you're carrying. They see the pressure, but not the promise. Yet heaven has you surrounded. The same hands that press also hold. The same fire that refines also protects. And in time, you will notice something extraordinary. The very places that once hurt the most begin to glow. Pain turns into compassion. Wounds transform into wisdom. You'll speak with a depth that cannot be taught, only lived. Others will find peace simply standing near you, sensing the weight of glory that rests quietly on your life. The world chases comfort. Heaven entrusts capacity. You were never made for ease. You were made for endurance. And though your back may bend under the pressure, your spirit will not break. There will come a moment when all of this will make sense. The waiting, the silence, the tears. You will realize that God was not delaying your destiny. He was deepening your foundation. For glory is heavy, and without strength beneath it, even blessings can crush. Hold steady. Chosen one, the hammer will not strike forever. The potter's hands are steady. The gold is almost ready to shine. And when you finally step into the fullness of what you've been prepared for, you'll carry it differently, not with pride, but with peace. Because only those who have been pressed understand the quiet dignity of glory. There comes a point in every divine story when heaven stops whispering and begins to summon. The gentle tug you once felt becomes a command written into your very breath. You are no longer being prepared, you are being called. This is that moment. The signs have been subtle but constant. You felt the stirring in your chest, the restlessness that no distraction can quiet. The same places that once brought comfort now feel too small. Conversations fade. Old circles dissolve. And deep inside you sense that something vast is unfolding. That is the sound of your name being called in the spirit. When heaven calls, it doesn't always sound like a voice from the clouds. Sometimes it arrives as an unshakable conviction, as a vision that refuses to die, as a peace that persists even when logic says, stop. You've been hearing it through repeated thoughts, through words that echo from unexpected mouths, through divine interruptions that reorder your plans. It's not coincidence. It's calling, as spoken in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 1. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. There is something sacred about being called by name. It means heaven doesn't just know you, it claims you. The call is not for what you can do, but for who you are. You were never a random soul wandering the earth. You are part of an assignment that predates your existence. For a long time, you questioned whether you were ready. But readiness was never the requirement. Obedience was. God doesn't choose the equipped. He equips the chosen. The call is not about your perfection. It's about your surrender. Think of the moment when Moses stood before the burning bush, his sandals filled with dust, his past still heavy upon him. He heard his name, and fear struck first. Who am I? He asked. That question has echoed through generations, but the answer remains the same. You are the one God decided to speak through. There was once a woman named Layla. She worked quietly, unnoticed, in a small town library. Her life was simple, almost invisible. Yet, for months, she kept dreaming of rivers that split into many streams. One morning, during her walk, she felt a voice rise inside. You are a river. Confused, she prayed for clarity. Within a week, she found herself leading a group of young women in her community, guiding them through loss and rebuilding faith. Layla realized then that the call wasn't to leave her ordinary life, it was to fill it with extraordinary presence. She didn't need a pulpit, she became one. Your calling may not look like a stage or a spotlight. It may look like compassion in a workplace, peace in a family, creativity that heals. God calls people into every corner of the world because His light belongs everywhere. Still, answering the call is not without cost. It asks for courage, the courage to let go of what feels safe, to walk into what feels uncertain. But understand this, the same voice that calls you will also carry you. You will never walk alone into obedience. When heaven calls, everything begins to align. Doors that were shut open with ease, words flow that you didn't plan. Strength appears when exhaustion should have won. You begin to notice divine coincidences that form a path of light beneath your feet. It's not imagination, it's orchestration. And though fear may whisper that you are not enough, remember this, the call is proof that God believes you are. He doesn't waste His voice on those He won't empower. There's a reason this message finds you now. It's not random timing. It's a divine reminder that your moment has arrived. You are no longer waiting for permission. Heaven already signed your release. So when the next opportunity rises, don't shrink back. When the next idea burns in your mind, don't delay. When the next divine connection appears, don't doubt. You have been summoned, and everything that once seemed uncertain will begin to make sense as you move. The season of silence has ended. The calling has begun. Walk forward, not with fear, but with the calm of one who knows they are sent. Every call begins as a whisper, but ends as a trumpet. You may not see the full path yet, but obedience will draw the map beneath your feet. The moment you say yes, heaven begins to move. What once felt distant rushes closer, and destiny recognizes your voice, calling back to it. When heaven begins to move, the very air around you changes. You start noticing shifts that cannot be explained, conversations that confirm what you've been sensing, moments that feel divinely timed. People who appear out of nowhere to speak words that touch something deep inside. This is the shift in the atmosphere. You are no longer in the season of waiting. You are in the season of unfolding. The spiritual realm has recognized your awakening, and now creation responds. Paths you didn't know existed begin to form beneath your steps. Résistance lessens. Peace increases. Even when challenges arise, they no longer carry the same weight, because your perception has changed. You no longer walk as a seeker, you walk as a carrier of presence. You may have felt it recently, a strange stillness before major change. The sensation that something unseen is aligning. Heaven often moves quietly before it moves suddenly. The silence that once felt empty now hums with divine activity. The Word of God, recorded in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, declares, "The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, and in this place I will give peace, says the Lord of hosts." This is that moment. The atmosphere around you is being rewritten. The second half of your story will not resemble the first. Everything that once drained you will now serve you. Every loss will return multiplied. The peace that felt impossible will become your foundation. There's a story of a man named Jonah, not the prophet of the sea, but a teacher who carried quiet wisdom for years. He struggled to feel purpose. Teaching without passion, surviving without joy. One afternoon, while walking home, rain began to fall, yet he felt something shift within the rain. Didn't chill him, it awakened him. He said later, "It felt like heaven was washing the old dust off my soul." That week, he changed everything. His approach, his focus, his prayer life, and within months, the atmosphere around him shifted entirely. The same rain that soaked the ground soaked his spirit in renewal. That's how it happens. Heaven doesn't always announce the shift with thunder. Sometimes it arrives like soft rain, quiet. Cleansing. Undeniable. The same spirit that hovered over the waters at creation now hovers over your life, bringing form to what once was formless. The shift touches everything: your thoughts, your speech, your relationships. Some people will drift away without conflict. Others will appear as divine alignments. You will begin to sense what belongs and what must end. This discernment isn't harsh, it's sacred clarity. You'll start protecting your peace like a temple, realizing that not every voice deserves entry into holy spaces. The spiritual climate responds to authority when you begin to speak from identity instead of insecurity. The atmosphere obeys. You'll notice prayers answered faster, ideas carrying impact, emotions settling where chaos once lived. That is how you know heaven has turned the page. Sometimes you'll feel the weight of transition, the pressure of new glory settling on old ground. Don't panic. Every time God shifts the atmosphere, He also stretches your capacity. The light that once felt external now burns within you. You've become a walking sanctuary. As this transformation deepens, remember that atmosphere isn't changed by striving but by surrender. It shifts when your heart aligns with heaven's rhythm. When your words agree with truth, power flows naturally. Take this as your confirmation. The energy around you is shifting because heaven has chosen your environment to carry evidence of divine order. Where confusion once ruled, clarity will reign. Where fear once spoke, peace will now whisper. If your spirit recognizes this change, affirm it in a single act of agreement. Comment, "It shifts now." Those 3 words are more than a phrase, they are a decree. When you speak them, you align your life with the current of heaven's momentum. Say them softly or write them boldly, it doesn't matter. The atmosphere will hear, and once it shifts, it will not return to what it was before. The change is permanent. The wind has turned, and your life is about to sound like heaven. When you write, "It shifts now," you're not demanding a miracle, you're recognizing one already in motion. Those words are agreement, not request. They say, "I see what heaven is doing, and I move with it." The moment you declare them, something aligns your emotions, your thoughts, your energy, all adjusting to divine order. Each syllable carries authority. It identifies the atmosphere. Shifts commands transformation. Now seals it in the present. You're not hoping for change, you're witnessing it. As you speak it, peace begins to replace confusion, and heaven breathes through your surroundings like wind finding its home. Across the earth, hearts like yours are beginning to awaken. One by one, the scattered embers are catching flame, forming a quiet constellation of light. You were never alone. There are others, chosen ones, rising in different cities, speaking different languages, yet hearing the same call. This is the rise of the remnant, the gathering of those who refuse to let hope die. They are the ones who kept praying when the world mocked prayer, who kept believing when faith became unpopular, who carried compassion in a culture of indifference. You are part of that hidden army, walking through ordinary days with extraordinary purpose burning in your chest. For a long time, you wondered why your heart ached for things others ignored, why you could not stay silent when injustice screamed, why you felt responsibility for strangers' pain. That was not sensitivity, it was assignment. Heaven planted in you the seed of restoration. Now, as the remnant rises, that seed begins to bloom. According to the writings in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 19, "For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God." Creation itself has been waiting for this, for you. Every sunrise, every wave, every breeze has been whispering, "When will they awaken?" Now heaven answers. Now, all, the rise of the remnant is not a parade of pride, but a procession of peace. It's not loud rebellion, it's quiet resolve. You don't need banners or titles. Your existence, healed and whole, becomes its own sermon. There is an image, a valley once scorched by drought. Cracks split the earth like scars, and every living thing seems gone. But suddenly, clouds gather. Rain begins to fall, softly at first, then steady. Each drop finds the cracks, filling them not with ruin, but renewal. That rain is you, the chosen ones, healing what was once forgotten. And as this movement expands, every voice matters, every share, every whisper of truth, every act of generosity is another drop in that rain. Together, those drops become rivers. When you like this message, you're not simply pressing a button, you're lighting a small candle in the dark. When you share it, you're passing that candle to someone still wandering in shadow. When you subscribe, you're saying, I choose to keep walking in this light. And when you donate, if you ever feel led, you become part of the river itself, your offering turning into water that carries hope to distant shores. There's no pressure in this. There never should be. Giving is never a toll. It's a heartbeat. Every time someone offers what they can, time, prayer, kindness, or support, they join the echo of creation that's been waiting for light to rise. Think of it like a symphony. Each note on its own is small, but together they fill the air with glory. Your contribution, however it comes, is a note in that song. To like is to hum softly. To share is to let the melody travel. To subscribe is to return for the next movement. To donate is to help the music never stop. This is what we are building, not a following, but a fellowship. A place where every soul can breathe again. Where truth sounds like home, and none of it happens without the quiet, willing hearts who choose to keep the flame alive. The remnant does not rise because of one voice. It rises because of many. It rises through your agreement, through your participation, through your courage to care. You felt the loneliness of walking against the current, but now you'll feel the warmth of walking together. All across the world, chosen hearts are waking doctors, artists, students, mothers, fathers, all hearing the same whisper, you are part of this. End quote. So, as you listen now, I know this, there's no demand, only invitation. If these words have touched you, let your response be as gentle or as grand as you wish. Like if the light stirred you. Share if you know someone still searching. Subscribe if your heart wants to grow deeper. Give if gratitude overflows. Each act, no matter the size, joins this rising wave. Together, we become living proof that faith still breathes. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that your single spark helped ignite a sky full of stars. That's how the remnant rises, not through force, but through love made visible. Each time one of you answers the call, the darkness loses ground. The world grows a little warmer, a little brighter, a little closer to the sound of heaven. Your simple yes becomes a ripple that travels far beyond screens and words. It becomes living light, carried by love into places your feet may never reach. There is a moment, quiet, yet unmistakable, when the call turns into clarity. The fire that once burned wildly inside you begins to take shape, forming into something purposeful. This is the unveiling of the mantle, the divine assignment that has been waiting for your yes. The mantle is not an object, it is a presence, a responsibility, a weight of sacred authority. It wraps around your life like invisible armor, changing the way heaven and earth interact with you. It doesn't make you better than others, it makes you accountable for more. You no longer walk merely for yourself, you walk for those connected to your obedience. Throughout Scripture and history, every chosen vessel bore a mantle. Elijah passed his to Elisha. Ruth carried loyalty as her mantle. Esther's was courage wrapped in grace. Each mantle carried both beauty and burden. You are now stepping into yours. The Spirit spoke through the writings in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. No, this is the essence of the mantle. It does not remove fear, it redefines it. You may still tremble, but you move anyway. You may still question, but you obey regardless, because you now understand, purpose is not the absence of weakness. It is heaven working through weakness to display strength. The mantle you carry will not always announce itself with glory. At first, it may feel heavy, awkward, uncertain, like David trying on Saul's armor. You may not know how to move with it yet. That's because it was crafted uniquely for you. It must learn your rhythm, and you must learn its weight. There's a story of a man named Jalen, a musician who loved sound but hated crowds. He composed songs that no one heard, melodies that seemed to vanish into solitude. One night, while half asleep, he dreamed of standing before a sea of broken instruments. He touched each one, and they began to play again. When he woke, he wept. That day, he began to play publicly, using his music to restore others. What once felt like fear became a mantle of healing through harmony. Your mantle may not look like music, but it carries the same heartbeat: restoration, redemption, renewal. It will take what wounded you and transform it into a tool for others' deliverance. You'll know the mantle is active when you speak, and peace follows. When you move and obstacles bend. When you walk through storms and others find shelter behind you. You'll recognize it not by fame but by fruit. Still, the mantle will test you. It will call you to forgive when revenge seems fair, to love when bitterness feels easier, to stand when retreat seems reasonable. Every challenge you face will not just refine you, it will reveal how much of the mantle you've learned to carry with grace. Sometimes, the mantle isolates. Not everyone will understand what rests upon you. Some will misread your silence as pride or your focus as distance. Do not defend yourself. Heaven will. The mantle was not given for approval, it was given for impact. And remember, mantles multiply through humility. When you serve faithfully, you make room for others to rise. The true sign of calling is not control but release, helping others find their own flame within your light. Think of your life as a torch passed from eternity's hand. Every trial has been fuel, every tear a drop of oil, every prayer a spark. And now, as you lift that torch, it will not only guide your path, it will ignite others waiting in the dark. There will be days when the mantle feels invisible, and you'll wonder if it's still there. Trust that it is. Just because you don't feel anointing doesn't mean you've lost it. Fire doesn't always roar. Sometimes it glows quietly until the wind of purpose blows again. Soon, what you've been carrying privately will begin to manifest publicly. Doors will open without you knocking. People will find you without introduction. That is how divine mantles operate. They draw recognition without performance. You were not chosen to impress, you were chosen to impact. The mantle and the mission are one breath now, moving together, waiting for your next step. Walk gently but boldly. You wear heaven's assignment like a garment of light. And the world is about to see what obedience looks like when it becomes radiant. Every step you take now leaves a glow behind. The mantle does not just cover you, it transforms you into living evidence that divine purpose can walk in human form. The moment you accept the mantle, heaven does not leave you wandering. Purpose without guidance would crush even the strongest spirit. So now, divine wisdom begins to flow, a sacred map drawn not on paper, but upon your heart. This is heaven's strategy. For every chosen one, there comes a time when obedience must meet precision. It's no longer about moving fast, it's about moving correctly. Heaven is not only interested in your passion, but in your positioning. Every word, every connection, every pause has meaning. Now, think of a master weaver, sitting before a vast loom. From your perspective, the threads look chaotic, colors twisted, knots everywhere. But from above, the pattern is perfect. Heaven sees from above. You are one thread in a divine design, and what feels tangled is actually being woven into beauty, as it is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. You've made plans before some fell apart. Others led you to unexpected places, but through it all, unseen hands guided you toward the right doors. Even detours were directions. Even delays were protection. Heaven's strategy wastes nothing. There's a story of a woman named Ilara. She worked for years building a business that never prospered. She prayed, fasted, pushed harder, but doors kept closing. One morning, she heard a quiet thought rise within her. Stop building what I did not design. She paused her projects, and for the first time in years, she rested. Weeks later, an old friend invited her into a new venture that matched her passion exactly. Within months, everything flourished. That was not coincidence, it was alignment. God's strategy is never rushed. Sometimes He delays not because you're behind schedule, but because He's preparing others who will walk with you. You are part of a larger movement, a symphony that must enter at the right moment, or the harmony will falter. Heaven's timing is perfect, even when it's painful. Now that your spirit is awake, you'll begin to feel divine nudges, gentle inner shifts. A quiet yes or no that guides you. The more you honor that inner voice, the clearer it becomes. Guidance increases with obedience. Each act of faith tunes your ear closer to heaven's frequency. You may also notice a new kind of clarity, words that come effortlessly when someone needs comfort, ideas that appear like lightning, insights that seem beyond your own understanding. That is wisdom on loan from eternity. Heaven trusts those who move with humility. Sometimes, divine strategy will seem illogical. It will ask you to step when it looks unstable, to give when it feels scarce, to speak when silence feels safer. But remember, faith never follows formulas. The impossible is heaven's favorite stage. Every battle you face is also strategic. The enemy's opposition often points to the area of your greatest authority. If he fights your voice, it's because your words carry freedom. If he attacks your peace, it's because your calm disarms chaos. Recognize the pattern, and you'll recognize the strategy. The Spirit teaches strategy through patterns, not panits. Look back over your story. See where the same lessons repeated. Each repetition was heaven whispering. Master this before you move forward. You weren't stuck, you were in training. You'll soon realize that divine instruction rarely comes in full blueprints. It arrives as steps. Heaven says, "Go here." And once you obey, the next piece appears. Faith is like walking on stones across a river. You see one rock at a time. But as you move, a path emerges. When you begin living by strategy instead of impulse, peace replaces striving. You no longer need to force outcomes. You become fluid, adaptable, confident that wherever you step, grace meets you. Right now, you stand at the edge of understanding. You don't need to know the whole plan. You just need to trust the planner. The same wisdom that carved rivers through rock is guiding you now. To mark this moment, make a simple act of alignment. Comment 555, a symbol of divine guidance and unfolding grace. The number 5 speaks of grace, and repeated 3 times it becomes heaven's whisper. My guidance will never fail you. No, write it not as superstition, but as declaration. Let 555 be your way of saying, I surrender my plan to divine direction. When you type it, pause for a moment. Feel the peace that follows. Surrender. You are not lost. You are being led. Every twist and turn in your path is part of a strategy older than time, written by a God who has never once made a mistake. Step forward. Even if you see only a few inches ahead, you don't walk into uncertainty, you walk into orchestration. And as you move, you will see that heaven's strategy is not just about guidance, it's about transformation. The plan is not only to bring you somewhere, it's to make you someone. When the call is answered and the mantle rests upon you, darkness always makes one final attempt to reclaim what it lost. The opposition you feel now is not a sign that you've failed, it is proof that you are close to breakthrough. This is the final confrontation, the last attempt of the enemy to silence what heaven has spoken. Do not be surprised by the intensity of this season. The closer light comes, the more violently shadows react. You may notice unexpected conflict, old fears resurfacing, relationships suddenly tested. It can feel like regression, but it isn't. It's exposure. The final battle always reveals what must not cross into your next chapter, as declared in the letter of James, chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. This confrontation is not about destruction, it is about decision. The enemy cannot defeat a surrendered soul. His power ends the moment you stop wrestling in your own strength and anchor yourself in obedience. Think of a storm. Wind rages. Lightning cracks. The sea roars with fury. To the sailor, chaos seems absoluti, but far below the waves lies stillness, untouched by surface violence. That depth is your spirit. The battle may shake your circumstances, but your core remains unmovable. You've been trained for this. Every prior struggle was rehearsal for the authority you carry now. There was a woman named Amira who once said, "The moment I decided to walk in purpose, everything fell apart." Yet later, she realized that nothing fell apart. Everything false simply fell away. The storm did not destroy her. It revealed her foundation. You are walking through a similar revelation. The final confrontation often looks less like fighting others and more like facing yourself. The version of you that doubts, that hesitates, that fears judgment. It rises, not to rule, but to be released. You cannot carry yesterday's insecurities into tomorrow's destiny. The fire you feel now is purification, not punishment. There's a refining law in the spirit. Anything unhealed will echo louder when you approach promotion. It's not cruelty, it's mercy. God won't allow fractured places to bear the weight of new glory. The exposure you feel is heaven saying, "Let this go before you ascend." You might feel stretched, misunderstood, even lonely again. But remember, the final confrontation narrows your path because the gate ahead is narrow. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. Look closely at what the enemy attacks. That is often where your greatest anointing lies. If your peace is attacked, your destiny involves releasing peace to others. If your family faces chaos, your purpose carries generational healing. The enemy's strategy always betrays his fear of what you're becoming. At this stage, your greatest weapon is stillness. The enemy feeds on reaction, but he cannot interpret silence. When you stop engaging in fear and start resting in faith, he loses access. The atmosphere around you begins to stabilize, and heaven handles what your hands no longer need to fight. Think of it like standing before a mirror fogged by steam. For years you could only see blur, your reflection unclear. But now, as truth begins to settle, the fog clears. You see yourself as heaven sees you, steady, radiant, covered. The enemy's final trick is to convince you that your reflection is still the same. But it's not. You've changed. The mirror has cleared. The battle is fierce because victory is near. Every shout of opposition is an echo of retreat. The enemy does not waste energy on what is weak. He attacks what threatens his domain. And your obedience threatens his domain. So stand, not in arrogance, but in authority. You have been given armor forged in surrender, and it will not fail you now. The sword of peace is sharper than rage. The shield of faith blocks every accusation. You do not fight for victory, you fight from victory already won. When the confrontation peaks, speak truth, not fear. Whisper, "I belong to light," and darkness will recognize the voice of its conqueror. You are not standing alone. Heaven stands around you, unseen but unyielding. Soon, the noise will fade, the storm will tire, the accuser will flee, and you will find yourself standing where few remain stronger. Quieter, but radiant. You will realize that the battle was never just about you, it was about every life tied to your victory. When the final confrontation ends, there is no applause, no spectacle, just peace. A peace so complete it feels like silence after thunder. That silence is not emptiness, it's completion. It is heaven's way of saying, "Well done. The old has passed." End quote. From that silence, new strength will rise. You will walk lighter, speak clearer, love deeper. You will no longer fight to prove you are chosen. You will simply live as proof. After the storm comes the fire, not the kind that consumes, but the kind that crowns. This is the stage where everything you've endured becomes fuel for radiance. You are being crowned in fire, refined, yet unharmed, tempered, yet unstoppable. There's a holy irony in how heaven works. What once tried to break you is now what beautifies you. The same flames that threatened to destroy have purified your essence, leaving you clear, fierce, and filled with light. The ashes beneath your feet are no longer symbols of loss, they are the foundation of glory. As it was spoken in the first letter of Peter, chapter 1, verse 7, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it be tested by fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ. And fire changes everything. It transforms raw metal into strength, clay into pottery, and darkness into light. You have walked through that furnace. It wasn't random pain, it was holy fire, sent not to punish, but to perfect. And though you may still bear the marks of the heat, those marks are proof that you survived what others could not. There was once a young man named Soren. He dreamed of helping others, but every time he tried, life struck. Harder financial collapse, betrayal, sickness. He began to believe he was cursed. One night, desperate for understanding, he prayed. "Why does everything I touch burn?" A quiet voice answered. "Because you are meant to shine in fire." From that day on, he stopped running from difficulty. He learned to listen within the heat. Over time, wisdom emerged from his pain, and the same people who once pitied him came to him for counsel. His fire became his crown. Your story carries the same alchemy. Every time you stayed when it would have been easier to quit, you were gathering gold from flame. Every time you forgave, instead of retaliating, you were shaping your crown. Every tear that hit the ground became a gem set into it. Heaven remembers what endurance costs, and nothing offered in pain is ever wasted. The crown is not given in comfort, it's forged in endurance. It is invisible to the world, but unmistakable to the spirit realm. Angels recognize it, darkness respects it, and heaven celebrates it. When God crowns you in fire, He is not merely rewarding you, He is revealing you. He's showing the world what transformation looks like when faith refuses to die. Think of a phoenix rising from its own ashes. Not mythical, but symbolic. What seemed dead bursts forth with more color, more strength, more flight than before. You are that phoenix. The difference now is that you understand the fire's purpose. You no longer run from it, you rule through it. There's something about those who have walked through fire. They move differently. They carry peace that intimidates chaos. Their presence shifts rooms without words. People can't explain it, but they feel it, the unspoken assurance that this person has seen the worst and still believes in beauty. That's who you're becoming. The crown of fire is humility wrapped in radiance. It is not loud, it is luminous. You won't need to announce it. It will simply glow from the way you forgive, the way you speak, the way you love without expectation. There will be moments when the world misreads your quiet strength as distance, your calm as pride, your faith as foolishness. But don't explain your crown to those who haven't walked through fire. Let your life speak instead. You'll notice something extraordinary. The fire that once consumed energy now fuels compassion. You will find yourself drawn to heal what you once ran from. The crown doesn't elevate you above others, it draws you closer to them. The more you shine, the more you illuminate paths for those still lost in the dark. You are now a torchbearer. Your crown is not a symbol of hierarchy, but of hope. You carry proof that survival can look like beauty, that broken things can blaze again. So when you wake each morning, remember you are walking evidence that grace doesn't remove fire, it redeems it. You've earned not through striving, but through staying. Soon, others will see it too. They won't always understand what changed, but they'll sense it, something about your gaze, your posture, your peace. The fire no longer frightens you because you've learned to carry it without being consumed. That's what it means to be crowned in fire. You are no longer defined by what you lost, but by what you became through the burning. When a person who has walked through the fire finally begins to speak, heaven listens. Their words no longer echo like noise, they resound like thunder wrapped in tenderness. This is the moment when your voice transforms into the new sound, the prophetic resonance of someone who has lived, burned, and risen. Your voice has changed. It no longer trembles from fear, it trembles with power. It carries weight because it was born from silence. It carries peace because it was shaped in storms. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs your sound, the frequency of truth that only you can release. As written in the book of Psalms, chapter 96, verse 3, declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous works among all peoples. When you speak now through art, kindness, teaching, prayer, or presence, you are declaring glory in your own way. Every sentence becomes a spark, every act an echo of heaven's harmony. You are part of a divine orchestra that spans generations, and your note matters. Think of the ocean at sunrise. For a moment, the waves and the sky sing the same color. The horizon hums softly with promise. That's what your voice does. It joins heaven's light with earth's longing. This new sound doesn't demand attention, it draws it naturally. People will lean in without knowing why. They won't hear volume, they'll hear truth. They'll hear life returning to places long, silent. Here, a sacred responsibility arises not to be heard for fame, but to be heard for healing. You speak so others remember that hope still breathes. You create so others feel again. You share so others realize they're not alone. There was once a woman named Neria who sang not to crowds, but to the wind. She sang over her garden while watering dry soil. Neighbors thought her eccentric, yet the flowers near her home bloomed brighter than anywhere else. One day, a passerby asked why she sang. She smiled and said, "Because the earth listens. That is your calling to speak even when you think no one hears. Because the unseen always does. Your story carries melody. Each heartbreak is a note. Each miracle a chord. Each prayer a rhythm. Together, they form your life's song. When you release that song through honesty, compassion, or courage, you release freedom for others. And as this sound grows, it invites others to join. That's how movements begin, not with demands, but with resonance. Every like, every word shared, every moment of engagement becomes another instrument added to the orchestra. When you like this message, it's like striking the first note of a melody that travels further than you imagine. When you share it, you become wind, carrying that melody into hearts you'll never meet. When you comment, you add harmony, your own echo to the growing sound of awakening. When you subscribe, you become part of the choir that keeps this music alive. And when you donate, if your heart ever whispers yes, imagine it as lighting another lantern on the long road of light. Each gift becomes a lamp for someone still walking through the dark, another gentle flame guiding them home. There's no force here, only invitation. Music cannot be forced, it must be chosen. Generosity, too, is not a transaction, it's rhythm. Each person who joins adds their own tempo, their own heartbeat to the collective sound. Imagine standing by a campfire at night. Sparks rise, dancing into the dark sky. Each spark is a soul awakened by this message, carrying warmth into cold spaces. Your simple act of listening, of sharing, of giving becomes another spark, rising to join the constellation of light. Together, we create a chorus of restoration, and that chorus will travel farther than our voices ever could alone. So, if this word touched something inside you, let it breathe. Like if your spirit hummed in recognition, share it if you want another heart to remember its song. Comment what it stirred in you. Your voice adds to the harmony. Subscribe if you wish to walk with this family of light. Give, if gratitude overflows, so the lanterns of hope keep burning through the longest night. You are not an audience, you are part of the sound. The world is waiting to hear what heaven sounds like through you. And now, as you stand here, feel it, the vibration beneath your skin, the hum in your chest. That is the sound of awakening. That is the new sound rising from your life. The melody has found its vessel, and the silence has found its voice. You are the song heaven waited generations to sing. There comes a time, after the fire and the rising, when heaven begins to return what was once taken. The pain that once felt endless begins to reveal purpose, and the ruins that surrounded your soul start blooming with quiet life. This is the restoration of all things, the divine symmetry that balances loss with redemption, emptiness with abundance, tears with joy. For so long, it seemed as if every effort scattered into the wind. You gave love and received silence. You built with faith and watched it crumble. You prayed until your voice trembled. Yet answers seemed to hide behind the horizon. But now, the horizon itself moves toward you. What was withheld is finding its way back, refined and multiplied. As written in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Those words are not poetry, they are a divine promise. God does not simply return what was lost, He transforms the loss into the very soil where new blessings grow. The years you thought wasted have been working underground, germinating purpose, unseen. Restoration is not just the return of what you had, it is the unveiling of what you have become because of what you lost. The brokenness you endured created the capacity to hold greater joy. The humility birthed from hardship became the vessel that can now carry grace without pride. Heaven restores only what can now be handled with wisdom. There was a man named Theo who once said, God didn't give me back what I lost. He gave me back myself. He had spent years chasing recognition, only to end up burned out and alone. Then, in his quietest season, everything changed. He began to find contentment in simplicity, gratitude in silence. Slowly, opportunities returned, but this time, he didn't chase them. They came to him. What he thought was restoration of possessions was actually the restoration of peace. Your own restoration will mirror that rhythm. It won't always arrive wrapped in grandeur. Sometimes it will come as laughter after long sadness, as connection after isolation, as rest after striving. Other times it will come disguised as release the courage to let go of something that no longer serves your spirit. Restoration often starts small, like the first green sprout pushing through cracked soil. It doesn't look like much at first, but beneath that smallness is the force of resurrection. The same spirit that raised life from death is breathing through your story now, rewriting endings that once seemed permanent. The process of restoration carries both gentleness and precision. Heaven is not only giving you things back, it's returning them to you in right order. Some blessings will reappear exactly when your heart is ready to sustain them. Others will look different, because you are different. There's a moment in every chosen life when gratitude outweighs grief. You begin to realize that the journey wasn't meant to be easy, it was meant to be holy. Every delay that once felt cruel was actually divine timing, protecting you from collapse. Every unanswered prayer was a redirection toward what would truly fulfill your soul. Restoration also includes relationships. Some that drifted will find their way back, not through force, but through maturity. Others may never return, but peace about them will. Closure is a kind of restoration too. It frees you from replaying what no longer needs your energy. Financially, emotionally, spiritually, everything lost is finding a path home. It may not return in the same shape, but it will return in better form. The house may not be the same, but the peace within it will be deeper. The friendship may not resume, but the love it taught you will live forever. Heaven, histori's essency, not just evidence. Restoration doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. It often slips quietly into your days, disguised as ease. One morning you'll wake up and realize that the heaviness is gone, that laughter flows without effort, that your spirit no longer flinches when remembering old pain. That is restoration. And when it happens, gratitude will rise naturally, not forced, not rehearsed. You'll find yourself thanking God not only for what you received, but for what you endured, because endurance became the bridge that led you here. Everything lost had to leave so you could learn how to hold. Everything meant to stay. And now that your heart understands value beyond appearance, heaven can trust you with abundance again. This restoration is permanent because it's internal, even if the world shifts again, even if storms return. The peace within you will not be uprooted. What's being rebuilt now is not fragile, it's eternal. You are living proof that loss is not the end of the story. Restoration is not a miracle for the lucky, it is a promise for the faithful. And that promise has found you. When all has been said and done, when the fire has passed and the light has settled, there comes a stillness that can only be described as revelation. It is not a noise or a vision, it is the quiet knowing of exactly who you are and why you are here. This is the moment the circle closes. When heaven's whispers meet your understanding, the revelation is complete. You have walked through shadow and storm, silence and sound, wilderness and wonder. Every valley and every mountain was necessary, not to prove your strength, but to reveal your identity. What once felt like punishment was preparation. What you called chaos was choreography. The story was never falling apart, it was falling into place. As revealed in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 5, Behold, I make all things new. Those words are not just prophecy, they are present reality. The renewal has already begun within you. You have become new, not by escaping pain, but by transforming within it. Heaven's fingerprints are all over your resilience. There is something sacred about this stage of awakening. The striving ends. The explanations fade. You no longer need to convince anyone of what you carry. You simply are. The need to prove dissolves in the presence of peace. You are the continuation of a story older than time, the echo of a promise spoken before the earth knew sunrise. That's why nothing ordinary ever satisfied you. Your soul recognized the eternal, even when your mind couldn't name it. There's a story told about a shepherd who carried a cracked jar of oil. Every step he took, drops leaked from the break, leaving a shining trail behind him. People mocked the imperfection, but when they followed the path, it led them back to safety every time. One day the shepherd asked God if he should fix the jar. The voice replied, "No, that crack was the design. You, too, are that jar. Every scar, every flaw, every fracture has leaked light along the way. The world has been guided by what you thought was your brokenness. The revelation is this: your weakness was never disqualification, it was divine design. The cracks became channels, the pain became passage. You have been a vessel of heaven all along. You now understand that being chosen doesn't mean being spared, it means being sent. It means carrying light into places too dark for comfort. It means standing as a bridge between what was and what can be. There's a calm authority that begins to settle over you in this realization. You don't seek validation anymore. You seek alignment. You no longer chase destiny, you embody it. What once frightened you now follows you. The atmosphere recognizes who you are. Rest no longer feels like delay, it feels like worship. Silence no longer feels empty, it feels full. You've stopped asking when things will happen and started noticing that they already are. Look around your life. The pieces you once thought shattered beyond repair are rearranging themselves into a mosaic. The colors are richer for the breaking. What once embarrassed you now empowers others. The very story you wanted to hide is the one heaven uses to heal. In the quiet of this revelation, you realize that being chosen was never about spotlight or superiority, it was about stewardship. To be chosen means to carry what others cannot yet carry. To love when others cannot yet love. To hope when the world forgets hope. You have become the evidence of divine faithfulness. Your journey speaks louder than sermons ever could. You are living scripture, read by the eyes of those searching for proof that grace is real. And now, as revelation settles, peace takes the place of striving. You finally see that everything led here not to a finish line, but to a beginning disguised as completion. You are not ending, you are emerging. Soon, your presence will change rooms without words. You will speak less, but say more. You will walk slower, but impact deeper. Because revelation makes you steady. It teaches you to move in rhythm with eternity rather than in rush with time. And as the story closes, heaven smiles not because the journey ends, but because you've remembered the truth that started it all. You were never lost, never forgotten, never ordinary. You have always been chosen, shaped by mercy, refined by purpose, and revealed by love. This is who you are, the reflection of divine intent, the echo of eternal promise, the proof that light cannot be extinguished. The revelation is complete. The chosen has awakened, and heaven rejoices because, finally, you see yourself as you were always seen. You've reached the end of this journey, but endings are only beginnings, disguised in silence. What you've walked through, word by word, wasn't just a story. It was a remembering. Every section, every phrase, every whisper was heaven weaving light back into your awareness. You've come to know who you are, the chosen, the refined, the restored. You've stood through the fire, carried your mantle, and now you stand in revelation. The world will feel different after this, not because it has changed, but because you have. Now, the journey moves beyond words. The message doesn't end here. It continues through you, your voice, your kindness. Your courage will carry it into places these words can't reach. When you like this message, it's as if you press your fingerprint into the story itself, saying, I was here, and I believe light still wins. When you share it, you become the bridge that carries hope into someone else's storm. When you comment, you plant your own echo into the soil of this moment. Proof that revelation met you here. When you subscribe, you step into a circle of souls walking this same path, choosing to grow together. And if your heart ever whispers to give, imagine it as lighting one more lantern. For those who still wander in shadow, your act becomes the flame that guides them home. There is no pressure, no demand, only invitation. Every gesture, every click, every bit of support becomes part of the current that keeps this message alive for others who need it most. You've walked through the fire and found your light. Now, let it shine quietly, steadily, endlessly. The world is waiting to see what heaven sounds like through you.